Felicitations, benefactors. Ferrari-Man 601 here with the review of the McLaren MP4 30 in iRacing. The MP4 30 just released earlier this week, and I did a very quick shakedown of the car last night, the first time I ever drove it, and, well, inconclusive at the moment. It's a curious addition to iRacing, not because it's a 2015 Formula One car, one of the latest and greatest of the generation, but curious because it's the McLaren. Now, granted, I'm sure iRacing wrote to basically all the Formula One teams, and McLaren were the only ones who were gracious enough to grant them the kinds of access that they needed in order to recreate this car with such fidelity. But we are kind of talking about the worst car on the grid. Alright, maybe it's not the Manor, but I mean it's pretty terrible. McLaren, the only team running the Honda power unit this year, and it's pretty pitiful. But I have to say, iRacing have done a very good job with it. Obviously, everything is very nicely rendered with the models and textures and all of that. I have my own personal livery on the car, but so far, so good as far as the basic checkout and everything. Of course, you have all of the gizmos and gadgets in the cockpit that you're used to having. This is on-the-fly throttle map, or rather, this is fuel mixture. You can adjust the diff and all of that kind of stuff. All in all, it's pretty similar to what it was when the Williams came out, the FW31 from 2009, when they gave us that car way back when. But the MP4 30. Let's give it a go. So we get our pit lane speed limiter and all that good stuff. We get our 8-speed gearbox, plus reverse, of course. And off we go. First thing you'll notice, obviously, are the sounds. And what can I say? These are probably some of the most immersive sounds I've ever heard in sim racing. And not only that, but there's a lot of stuff going on in this car. Obviously, you've got the internal combustion engine, the 1.5-liter V6, but you've also got the MGU-H, which is an electric motor attached to the turbocharger, recovering energy normally wasted from the combustion process, the heat. You have the MGU-K, which is basically an improvement of the old KERS system that Formula One was playing with between 2009 and 2013, which is harvesting energy from the rear axle under braking. You've got the turbocharger itself spooling up. You've got the intercoolers, you've got the wastegates, and of course you've got all the noises that normally come from a gearbox. And all of these sounds are represented in the audio landscape. So I'll just give you a chance to listen to them. So there you go, there's just a chance to sample the very, very immersive and multi-level soundtrack that you've got going on with this car, in addition to all of the normal road noise, the tire hum, wind noise, and of course, when you go over the washboard curbs, you can hear all of that as well. Alright, so now we're going to get down to business. I'm running the baseline setup. The only change that I've made to it is to take out some fuel. It starts you off obviously on full tanks, which is about 225 pounds or so. I'm running a little under 100 pounds, so a bit less than half of the total fuel load theoretically available. I've also got the fuel mixture turned down to the minimum at the moment. And as you can tell, the back end's a little squirrely. Some of the instrumentation that you can see here on the dash, obviously everything going on that screen on the steering wheel. The big number in the middle is obviously the gear position indicator. To the left of that, you have your tachometer showing your RPM. Below that, you have the delta to the last lap. So that'll tell you whether you are above or below the last lap delta. Below that, you have your lap time. I believe that's your last lap. Or your fastest lap. In this case, the last lap was the fastest lap because it's the only time lap we've done. So we'll confirm that in a second because we're well under the last lap delta. Right, so that is the current delta. So those blue numbers in the lower left, that is your current delta time. So your relative, the white numbers above that are ticking, you see plus 4.8 at the moment, that's relative to the blue on the bottom. On the right-hand side of the screen, on the top corner, you've got the brake bias adjustment, the red numbers, the 56 at the moment, so we can ramp the bias down and up. You can do that on the fly. Prefer to have a little bit more rear bias. It locks at 5347, so that's showing you the front axle. So we're running 53% to the front. And to the extreme right of the screen, you can see the white bar that is rising and falling as we're driving along here. That is the ERS meter. That's showing us the state of charge in the main MGUK battery. And that will charge and discharge based off of whether or not we are accelerating or braking. Under braking, you'll see that meter replenish because the MGUK is recovering energy from the rear axle under braking. And under acceleration, as you can see right now, the meter is dropping because the MGUK is putting energy back into the system and propelling the car forward. To the left and at the bottom of that bar, you can see the letters ERS, the green letters. Just below that is a number which is ticking down right now through 77, 76. That is numerical representation of the state of charge on the MGUK battery. So you get two ways to digest that data, which for more visual people like me, I prefer the meter, and some more analytical types might like the numbers. You get your pick. So I'm going to ramp up the engine throttle map, the fuel mixture right now. So we're at maximum. Now we're going to get into describing what it's like to drive this monster. So we're at maximum power right now, and you can see, not even done with the first sector yet, we're already 2.4 under delta, almost. And I missed my braking point there, that's totally my fault. But You get a lot of straight line power in this thing, as you would expect, but in comparison to other 2014 and 2015 F1 machinery that's out there for sampling in different sims, for example, the 2014 and 2015 mods available for rFactor 2, this doesn't have nearly as much oomph as you would expect from, say, the Mercedes. You might see me having to chase the car around a little bit. The rear axle on this thing is very, very squirrely. Under power, there's a lot of snaking around that happens. Under braking, things shift around. There's a lot of weight transfer, and the car's not particularly conducive to having things flying around fore and aft. It very much likes to stay put in one place. Things have to happen a bit more gradually than you might expect. Through high-speed corners like that one, the lack of rear downforce is quite alarming. You would think that you'd just be able to stand on the throttle through on-camber corners and just basically allow gravity to help you, but not the case. You basically have to pedal the thing all the way around a corner. Again, not the case in comparable machines from Mercedes or Ferrari, or you know what, even the Red Bull. Those cars that you can drive in other sims in different third-party mods that are out there. What is a lot better on this car than I've seen so far from other sims is the recreation and representation of the electronic systems. The ERS, the energy recovery system, the way that behaves definitely affects how you approach this car. You've got to play with the brake bias to start to get some strain off the rear axle under deceleration, because you have the MGUK harvesting off of the rear axle, so it's a lot easier to lock up the rears, and as all of you seasoned sim racers know, rear locking in a heavy braking zone is not exactly something that's very pleasant. Brake bias and all of that functions as you'd expect, and of course if anybody has driven the FW31, that basically behaves in exactly the same fashion. What the car lacks is a turbocharged feel. It's not punchy in any way as you'd expect from a typical turbo engine. It doesn't, there's not much lag, and it's not like you hit a certain RPM and then the thing just bursts forth with power. It's very, very linear. It almost doesn't feel turbocharged in a lot of ways. And that's probably down to the MGUH, that electric motor's spinning up the turbo before the revs get there on the engine, so that there's basically no lag. And the external views, I'll give you a little bit later, you can actually hear the anti-lag system kicking in. Just using some exhaust pulses to keep that turbo spun up, as well as the MGUH coming in to spin that thing up a bit more. The gearboxes, as you would expect in a modern F1 car, flick the pedal and you're in gear, auto lift and auto blip. You get really good throttle response in all gears, as I said before. There's no turbo lag. But as I just demonstrated right there, you cannot get on the throttle through high-speed corners. This car just does not have the rear downforce. It's, as I said, alarming. Over 200 miles an hour here on the front straight. Seems to have plenty of outright horsepower to me. I mean, if if Fernando Alonso considers this to be a GP2 engine, I'd hate to see what the Mercedes is like. Doesn't seem to be down on power in my estimation. And we're going to go off a bit. Again, a demonstration of the car's lacking downforce in high-speed corners, for sure. Mechanical grip feels pretty good, as a matter of fact. Traction out of corners is good. Braking is good once you figure out how to handle that rear axle with the energy harvest going on. But again, high-speed corners, I'm chasing it all over the road, and it takes forever to get on the power out of a corner. It's not confidence-inspiring. The car feels stable. It just doesn't feel particularly planted. Once it grips, you know it's going to be there for you, but it takes a little bit of persuasion to actually convince me that it's not going to break free once I get on the power. If anybody has driven the MR02, the Marussia, in R-Factor 2, you'll know what I mean about not having rear grip. That thing is just atrocious. And although this McLaren is a few years younger and it's designed around a slightly different aerodynamic philosophy, the similarities are evident enough. Gone purple this lap so far. We're under the delta. I have not yet figured out how to deploy DRS. I'm pretty sure that status light you're seeing right there is the DRS. That green in the upper left of the steering wheel, and I totally overcooked it there.
They say you cut the cord. You'll have to slow down and give up the time gain.
Yeah, just cycling one of the buttons here on the wheel and just seeing what it does to those status lights in the upper left on the where the shift lights are coming up. Pretty sure that's the DRS toggle, especially since the lights went out once I left the DRS zone, and they went from 4 lights to 1 light when I got off the throttle, so pretty sure that's the DRS. Again, inconclusive at this point. We'll go one more lap and go into the DRS zone before we pit. DRS open. Yep, that's got to be it. Yeah, so 1 light for the detection zone, then 2 lights for the DRS zone proper, and then 4 lights when the flap's open. That's how that works. And a rear axle catching me out under braking there. Alright, so the detection zone. DRS zone, DRS open. And we'll pit this lap. Again, car feels decent enough once you're actually in the corner, but the braking zones, the weight transfer, it unsettles things massively. Grip in high-speed corners isn't there for the most part. There is a tendency to understeer through high-speed corners, but medium to low speed, the mechanical grip feels alright. Alright, so in the pits with us. For the cones. There we go. You can really hear the MGUK going right there. Harvesting and discharging as things go. But yeah, that's the MP430 in a nutshell. It's a difficult car to wrap your head around. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot to do in the cockpit, but with a little bit more time, I should be getting up to speed with this thing, and I'm sure many of you already are. But I'm gonna try to do a couple hot laps here and show you some decent external views, as well as some onboard shots. In fact, I haven't even looked at all the different camera angles that you can get from on board yet, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you next time.